Something is happening with this Bugatti Chiron build that has people genuinely divided. And it's not the rebuild itself. It's not the custom interior. It's not even the fact that this car, written off, split apart, left for dead, is actually coming back to life. What's got people talking is what this entire process is exposing. Because at this point, this has stopped being just a rebuild series. It's become a real conversation about how hypercars are supposed to be handled, who gets to handle them, and what happens when someone decides to ignore those rules entirely. If you've been following this project from the start, you already know it was never supposed to go this far. Bugatti didn't expect this car to be taken apart correctly, let alone split at the chassis, rebuilt piece by piece, and brought back to running condition outside of an authorized facility. But that's exactly what's happening. And now we've reached a stage where the stakes are higher, the challenges are bigger, and the debate is louder than ever. The question is no longer whether he can rebuild it. That's already been answered. The real question now is whether he should be doing it this way, and what it means that he can. Let's talk about what actually happened in this part of the build, because this is where opinions start to split hard. On one side, you've got people watching this and thinking, this is insane skill, this is what car culture is actually about, this is exactly the kind of thing that makes the automotive world worth following. On the other side, you've got people saying, this is precisely why manufacturers lock these cars down, restrict access to parts, and refuse to support independent repairs. And honestly, both sides have a point. Neither one is entirely wrong. That tension is exactly what makes this build so difficult to look away from. So, where are things mechanically at this stage? The car has come a long way. The most visible damage remaining was the gearbox bracket, and the surprise here was that it turned out to be weldable. That single moment reveals something important. Because when most people imagine a car like this, they picture components so exotic and so proprietary that conventional repair is simply off the table. But then you see a moment like this, and the reality is a little different. Parts of this car are reparable. They can be understood, worked on, and in some cases, recreated. And that idea, that a multi-million-dollar hypercar is not entirely beyond the reach of skilled hands, is a big part of why this build is so controversial. Without any official support from the manufacturer, every single step becomes harder. Airbags, chassis sections, radiators, all of it has to be sourced independently, repaired manually, or fabricated from scratch. There's no hotline to call, no technical documentation being handed over, no authorized dealer supplying parts. Everything has to be figured out on the fly, with experience and problem-solving standing in for factory guidance. Take the chassis repair as an example. Rather than sourcing a replacement section, which, without manufacturer support, may not even be an option, the decision is made to rebuild it directly. The approach is straightforward. This is metal, and metal can be worked. Cutting, heating, reshaping, welding, rebuilding the structure piece by piece until it meets the required standard. When you watch it laid out like that, it almost sounds too simple. But then you see the actual process, and you realize this isn't guesswork at all. This is years of accumulated knowledge being applied to a problem most people would never even attempt to solve. And that's exactly where the debate opens up again. Some people look at that kind of work and see extraordinary craftsmanship, a skilled builder doing something genuinely impressive with limited resources. Others look at the same thing and see a structural repair being made to a safety-critical component of a car without factory oversight, and they're deeply uncomfortable with it. Both reactions make sense, depending on your perspective. Now, let's get to something that really got people going, the airbags. During the teardown, something unexpected turns up. Part numbers, brand markings, identifiers that point somewhere surprising. The airbags inside this hypercar appear to share significant similarities with units found in far more ordinary vehicles. Cross-referencing the part numbers points towards something in the Audi A3 range. Now, stop there for a moment, because this is where the internet starts arguing. Some people hear that and shrug. Of course, there's parts sharing across the Volkswagen Group. That's just how large automotive conglomerates work. It makes complete engineering and manufacturing sense. Others hear it and immediately reframe everything they thought they knew about hypercars. You're telling me that a car worth several $1,000,000 is using airbags from a regular production hatchback? And here's why that moment matters beyond the obvious shock factor. Hypercars carry a very specific mystique. The assumption is that everything inside them is bespoke, developed exclusively for that platform, unlike anything else on the road. Moments like this peel that image back and reveal that, behind the branding and the price tag, these cars are still products of shared engineering. They still pull from the same supply chains. They're still built by people making practical decisions. That doesn't make them less impressive, but it does make them more human, more understandable, and more reparable as it turns out. The decision is made to test the airbag, fit it, and move forward. It works. And just like that, another assumption gets crossed off the list. Let's shift to the interior, because this part of the build changes the tone completely. Up to this point, everything has been technical. Mechanical problem solving. Diagnosing, fabricating, testing, repeating. But the interior is where the build stops being about restoration and starts being about reinvention. Rather than returning the car to factory specification, the decision is made to go in a completely different direction: bold colors, custom patterns, a reimagined aesthetic that has nothing to do with how this car originally left the factory. When it was revealed, reactions split immediately and sharply. Some people loved it. They said it gave the car its own identity, made it genuinely one of a kind, and that's exactly the point of owning something like this. Others felt the opposite, that a car of this caliber should be preserved as close to original as possible, that changing it fundamentally takes away from what it actually is. But there's a bigger question buried in that debate, and it's worth sitting with. What matters more, preserving what something was, or creating what it can become? Because this build has clearly chosen a side. And that choice is a big part of what makes it stand out from every other hypercar rebuild you've seen. While all of that is happening, there's another challenge running in the background that doesn't get nearly enough attention: the radiators. Cooling is everything. Without a properly functioning cooling system, nothing else matters. The engine won't reach operating temperature. The car won't run reliably. All of the chassis work, the airbag sourcing, the interior fabrication, it all becomes irrelevant if the cooling system fails. And the approach taken here is, once again, one that most people would never consider. Rather than waiting on replacement units, which, again, are not exactly sitting on a shelf somewhere, they build the radiators from scratch. Available cores, custom fittings, trial and error over multiple attempts until the setup looks right. This is the point in the build where skill gives way to something more uncomfortable, which is genuine risk. Because a radiator fabricated outside of factory specification isn't just a failed part if it goes wrong. It's a potential threat to the entire build and to the car itself. So they install everything, connect the system, and prepare to pressure test it. This is the moment the build has been working toward for some time. If the system holds pressure, they're close. Really close. The test starts. For a moment, everything looks good. Then air starts leaking. And just like that, the whole thing pauses. No coolant flow confirmation, no temperature test, no green light to move forward. One leak, and the timeline shifts again. And this is where the reality of a rebuild like this becomes impossible to ignore. No matter how much progress has been made, and there has been genuine, substantial progress, moments like this serve as a reminder. This is still a car being rebuilt without manufacturer support. Every solution carries some degree of uncertainty. Every step forward can and sometimes does come with a step back. But here's where we land. Even with that setback, the overall picture is undeniable. The chassis is rebuilt. The interior is finished. The car is closer to running than most people ever thought it would get. And that brings the bigger conversation back around. One side of this debate says this build proves these cars aren't as untouchable as everyone assumes. That with enough skill, enough patience, and enough willingness to figure things out independently, a hypercar can be understood and repaired by people outside the manufacturer's ecosystem. The other side says this is precisely why manufacturers maintain such tight control, because the complexity and the safety implications of these vehicles demand it. And then there's a third group. People who aren't particularly invested in either argument. They're just watching, fascinated, waiting to see what happens when this car finally runs to full operating temperature. Because that moment, when all of it comes together, is when everything this build has been building toward either proves itself or doesn't. So here's the question worth thinking about. Is this pushing car culture forward, or is it crossing a line that exists for good reason? Depending on where you stand, this is either one of the most impressive independent rebuilds ever documented, or one of the most controversial. But either way, one thing is clear, you can't ignore it. And you definitely can't stop watching. Drop your take in the comments. And make sure you're subscribed with notifications on, because when this car finally hits temperature, that's when everything changes.